to today's episode of VisiFI Tips, where technology, innovation, passion, and purpose come together. My name is Jami Jennings, and I'm the Vice President of Product Marketing Strategy, and I'll be your host each month as we talk to credit union leaders, researchers, fintech representatives, and many more about what is impacting credit unions today. Now, on today's episode, my guest is Becky Reed. Now, friends, Becky's resume is quite impressive. As you can see, her life and passion is all about credit unions. She was the former CEO at Lone Star Credit Union, but she is now the co-founder of the credit union service organization Pure IT QSO, the board chairman at NAQSO, the president of Block Advocates. She has her own consulting company called Becky Reed as a Service or BRASS, and also serving as COO for the fintech company BankSocial. So please join me in welcoming Becky Reed. Becky, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Jami. Thank you for having me.
Now, Becky, I don't know when you have time to sleep, because that's quite a lot of work that you're doing.
You know what? It's my life work, though. As you said, I'm very passionate about credit unions. So, I mean, why sleep when you can just evangelize credit unions?
Hey, I love that. I love that. And you do, because what's interesting is I've met Becky multiple times at different conferences. And in fact, Becky, I don't know if you remember, but you were one of the NAQSO's Next Big Idea judges. And we were on stage presenting, and you were one of those. But I didn't formally get to know you until we had a call with one of our customers about cryptocurrency. Now, cryptocurrency is one of those things, Becky, I'm going to be honest with you. It's one of those that you want to put your blinders on and you hope that it will go away. But I don't think it's going away. We found a study, I guess, that shows that the United States alone last year invested $65 billion in crypto fintech companies, and more people in the United States are using it. So I wanted to invite you today, Becky, to educate us on cryptocurrency. And I think the first logical step to start with is, what exactly is cryptocurrency?
All right. Thank you, Jami. I use the word crypto in cryptocurrency. And what I mean by crypto is that this whole space is actually using cryptography in order to encrypt data. So the crypto in cryptocurrency is referring to cryptography. And a lot of times I talk about the whole ecosystem, the whole crypto space. And when I talk about that, I'm not just talking about cryptocurrency, but I'm talking about everything that is in the space that is using cryptography as its encrypting mechanism. So cryptocurrency specifically is those type of things that you hear about. Bitcoin is probably the most prevalent type of cryptocurrency that you hear about. There's also Ethereum. There's also the meme coins like Dogecoin and things like that. And cryptocurrency is what gets the headlines. So everybody talks about cryptocurrency, and mostly because some people made a lot of money, specifically with Bitcoin, right? When they, Bitcoin started and it wasn't worth anything, and now it's worth a lot. And so that's why it's getting a lot of attention. But what I like to say is it may have started with cryptocurrency, but it certainly doesn't end there.
Right. No, I agree with you. So what's different about cryptocurrency?
So what is different about cryptocurrency is it is the first digital native mechanism by which individuals, people, can transfer a source of value, a token that has value, or you can call it money. It's a representation of money, right? Between two people without a middleman, without an intermediary. So with cryptocurrency, you can actually transfer a token, let's say Bitcoin, since that's what most people are familiar with. Jami, I can send you through my crypto wallet a representation of $5 in US dollars, for example, to your wallet, and I don't have to use a financial institution in order to do that. So cryptocurrency is a representation of a stored value or money that can be utilized without a middleman, that is completely digitally native and encrypted with using cryptography. So that's really what it is.
Well, I guess so. It's okay. So I'm trying to understand. So it's kind of like Venmo in a sense, right? Where I can send money to someone else or I can invest in money. But I think what I can't wrap my head around is tangibly, I can't touch it. But it is money.
Okay, so I'm going to challenge you, Jami, and I'm going to say, can you really, truly touch the dollars that you see in your digital banking account? The answer is no.
But yeah, I feel like I could go to my credit union. I could say, I want to pull out this much money, and they'll go into their drawer, open it up, and hand me that much money.
Yes. And the interesting thing about that is as you know, and those listeners who are listening today to this podcast understand all of those back office mechanisms, right, that happen when a member does walk in and ask for cash, right? Because what really is you're seeing when you look at your digital banking account as a member is just a representation of a dollar. And this is really no different. So you can actually, with cryptocurrency, using an exchange, you can create that dollar that you can hold in your hand with what's called an on and off ramp. So when you buy cryptocurrency, you're buying it from a traditional source, turning it into cryptocurrency. And then on the other side, you can off ramp and do the same thing and put it into a financial institution and go withdraw it in fiat or, have that dollar in your hand. So it is still possible to have that digital representation of money turn into what you and I would call, and I'm using air quotes now, real money. So that process is absolutely in place. But the beauty of cryptocurrency is that no longer is necessary. So when you use your debit card, there's not that dollar that you're having to hold in your hand in the middle. And you can do the same thing with cryptocurrency. You can, walk into your Starbucks if they'll accept cryptocurrency as payment, and you can make the payment and receive something for that digital representation of money. So Bitcoin was actually created to disintermediate financial institutions. And it was created during the last economic crisis that we had here in the United States in 2008 and 2009, when a lot of banks and a lot of really big companies failed. And so the great thing about it is that it is, again, completely, totally digital, and it is natively created in a digital environment called a blockchain. So the rails that cryptocurrency rides upon is an open source, decentralized network called the blockchain, which uses cryptography in order to record data on chain.
Okay. Now let me back up. That's a lot. So let me back up and ask this question. I like what you said from my brain's perspective of you can spend the money. Right? So you were saying if you could go to Starbucks and purchase Starbucks if they accept cryptocurrency. So there's not, and you also mentioned the term crypto wallet. So there's not a physical, tangible, we'll call it debit card or card linked to that account, or maybe there could be in the future and we can get to that. But in this crypto wallet, if there are merchants that accept it, that's how I spend the money. Is that correct?
Exactly. So, and that's where stablecoins come in. This can get complex, but it's really not complex. And one of the things that I want to educate credit about is this is a new way to do what we've always done. So I'm going to use an example of a traditional transaction at Starbucks, and then I'm going to tell you how that it would work behind the scenes in a crypto environment or on a blockchain or distributed ledger using a token of stored value. the challenge with using Bitcoin specifically, or Ethereum, or any type of digital asset that has a volatile value. So as you know, a lot of people who use cryptocurrency as an investment often are relying on that volatility, right? So that it can go up in value or down. They kind of use it similar to what they would do when they purchase a stock, which is why the SEC, has heavily looked into this area. But you probably don't want to use your Tesla stock to buy Starbucks coffee, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's probably not something you want to do. Well, it's the same type of thing. So what you want to do is you want to spend something whose value is going to be stable. And that's where stablecoin comes in. So there is a type of cryptocurrency called a stablecoin that is representative of, let's say, a US dollar. So one stablecoin is worth $1 US, and it doesn't have that volatility that Bitcoin or Ethereum or some of the other coins have. So now let's talk about, you walk into Starbucks and you use your card, your debit card that's attached to your credit union account, and your digital representation of that card is in your Apple Wallet, for example, on your iPhone. Okay. So you go in and you buy your Starbucks and you use Apple Pay in order to pay for that transaction, 100% digital, right? And then everybody knows on the back end what happens. That debit card gets charged. It comes out of your credit union account. Well, now let's talk about using your crypto wallet to do the same type of transaction. Let's say you have $10 of stablecoin sitting in your crypto wallet. That crypto wallet is attached to a Apple Pay mechanism that can do the transaction at the merchant. So the merchant accepts Apple Pay. Your crypto debit card is attached to your Apple Pay, and you go in and you pay for the transaction with your stablecoin, and that stablecoin is now transferred to the merchant. So the merchant still receives $5 for your cup of coffee. It's just in a digital token, as opposed to moving through all the back channels that has to happen in a traditional transaction today.
Oh, wow. Okay. You've opened my brain in a lot of directions. What I did like first is that you said it's a token. So unlike maybe the ACH rails that we're used to, where you're actually physically passing data, it's using a more secure mechanism of a token when that transaction's performed.
You got it, Jami. And really, a blockchain can be another type of payment rail. And that is where I really believe is the future of why it's important to pay attention to distributed ledger technology and blockchain. Again, everybody pays attention to the cryptocurrency piece, but it's really how that token moves that stored value between people or entities that makes all the difference. And because there's not that middleman, there's not that kind of middle piece that clogs things up sometimes, it makes the transactions much faster, much cheaper. And because of the digital native nature of the token, it can be much more secure.
Well, let's talk about that. I want to talk about, because one of the biggest things I know for us, for our credit unions, is there's a lot of fears around crypto, and one of those being the fraud component of it. So now I have a better understanding that it's a token. So we're not passing data in the clear, which is where a lot of fraud happens. But if, let's say, that hackers or whomever can intersect, or could they intersect that transaction, and let's say that that money gets taken somehow, who's liable? Meaning, is the credit union, is there some type of insurance policy behind it? Or would it be the actual whoever's selling the coins? How does that part work, Becky?
All right. So the interesting thing about transactions that happen on a blockchain is they are open and immutable. And what that means is that the transactions that happen on a blockchain are viewable by anyone who has access to the browser to view that transaction. And you hear a lot of people talking about anonymity on the blockchain, and you hear some noise sometimes about, bad guys doing things on the blockchain. You have certainly heard about hackers who use malware or ransomware and ask for Bitcoin as payment. And, there's this idea out there that all of this stuff is untraceable and anonymous, and that couldn't be further from the truth. What you actually see on chain is you can actually see that transaction from me to Starbucks. All right. What you don't know on chain is, because it's cryptographically encrypted, is you can't see that it's Becky doing the transaction. All you see is the wallet interacting with another wallet. But you can actually see that transaction happening. And all of that transaction history, basically my wallet that is attached to me. So what you see on chain is wallet number 123. Okay. If you know that wallet number 123 happens to be Becky, I own that wallet, then you can actually trace back everything that I've ever done with anything with that wallet. So you can determine where that money came from. You can determine how long it sat in my wallet. You can determine where I've spent it, what other wallets I've interacted with. And that is really, really powerful from a fraud perspective. So imagine this. And that transaction can't be intercepted. Again, it's using cryptography in order to encrypt the transaction. So intercepting the transaction in the middle is really, really difficult. But let's talk about fraud. What happens today, right? Today, what happens is a member might have their password compromised, right? Or they might fall prey to some sort of scam where they get convinced to send money somewhere that they shouldn't. Well, let's take that transaction and put it on chain. So in a traditional transaction today, the member gets convinced to wire money someplace, right? They don't realize that it was a bad actor until after the fact. They contact the credit union and they say, hey, I sent this $10,000 wire and it ends up that it's a bad guy. I sent it 2 days ago. Can you get that money back? Well, the credit union cannot get that money back, right? It's gone. Well, let's look at that transaction on chain. So now member, same scenario happens. Member gets scammed and gets asked to send $10,000 somewhere. Well, now they're going to go to their crypto wallet and they're going to initiate that transaction to send $10,000 to another crypto wallet, the information that the bad guys have sent to them. And they get an alert and it says, hang on a minute, you might want to be careful because that wallet that you're wanting to send this $10,000 to was just opened an hour ago. Also, you might want to know that other wallets who have interacted with that wallet are part of the FinCEN OFAC don't do business with list. So you probably want to think twice about sending that money. That kind of transaction and that kind of data that's available on chain is just not something that's available in the traditional payments systems that we use today. So I understand because there's been a lot of noise around cryptocurrency being bad and there's not a lot of security around it. But the truth is there's way more security around it than anything that we have available in the traditional environment we use today.
Wow. Okay. Let me ask this question. Who owns, because I like where you said there's an audit trail. I can go back and see the bad actor. I can see if they're on the FinCEN list. But who owns this centralized chain database of all these recorded transactions? Meaning, is it going to ever go away? Is someone controlling this or protecting this database of transactions?
So, Jami, what you're talking about is the whole reason that Bitcoin was created and the whole reason that distributed ledgers are very powerful. There is no centralized authority that owns any of this. And so you kind of have to change your mindset, because today there are centralized structures that use our consumer data, right? And there are these giant honeypots, I'm going to call them, of data that hackers get into. There was just a breach I saw the other day. A hospital got breached, and there's, a million people's information that is now just out there because, of course, it's this giant pot of information the bad guys want to have access to. So they target those centralized entities and centralized databases in order to get our information. And in fact, us as consumers, we're so kind of numb to it, right? Because it happens all the time. Well, the beauty of a distributed ledger is exactly that. It's distributed. It is decentralized. So a distributed ledger is a decentralized network where the nodes on the network, okay, or the servers that are running the network are decentralized and they are autonomous in their own right. But in order for a transaction to be approved on a distributed ledger, all of those nodes have to have consensus. They all have to agree that the transaction should take place based on data that's available on chain. And so once there's a consensus of all of those nodes, that transaction is immutably, that means it can't be erased or changed, recorded on chain. And no one single centralized entity owns that data. And so now all of that information, all of those blocks are recorded at each node. And so if one part of the network goes down, it's kind of like having an eternal backup, right? Every node backs up every other node. And so it's a completely different mindset. It is a decentralized network. It is no one central authority owns any of it.
I like it. Okay, because it's hard to get my mind around, but this is helping me just make some baby steps. And what you also, it's a lot, right? My brain is wrapped into debit cards and ACH and how money gets moved in a database. But this helps me, and I feel more secure actually, which is very ironic because now that I'm understanding there's a token and how the data is decentralized, it helps me have a better warm and fuzzy, I guess. But I also want to ask, we gave the example of Starbucks, where you could go to Starbucks and make a purchase. But the more that I hear you talk about crypto, it makes my brain think of this is more of an investment rail, kind of to think of it more as stocks and bonds. So essentially, it's not an everyday wallet. I mean, I guess you could, you were talking about a stable coin, but essentially this is bigger money that we're talking about. Would you see it that way? And that's probably why credit unions want to start investing in this, because people are going to maybe transition or begin to invest more funds into this type of, we'll call it a spigot.
Right. So, of course, I see the whole ecosystem as being much, much more than an investment in a specific type of cryptocurrency. Because of its decentralized nature, I think there's lots of different use cases, and that's a whole nother podcast that we could talk about there. Sure. But you specifically asked about cryptocurrency, and the interesting thing is that if you look at your data, if credit unions look at their data, and we did at Lone Star Credit Union back in late 2021 and early 2022, and we went through the data and we went through the transaction history, and we saw that our members were buying cryptocurrency. And in some cases, they were buying it from unscrupulous exchanges. And of course, since that time, we have heard of a lot of different crypto exchanges that have gone belly up or have done some nefarious things with their customers' money that, again, has caused a little bit of a tarnish to the reputation of the industry. But many people are buying cryptocurrency as an investment. In fact, there are many retirement funds and 401k funds that are offering crypto as something that people can invest in. You probably can go to your investment broker today and open an investment account that has crypto as a part of it. So yes, I think that that the reason that credit unions should initially start paying attention is your members are probably already buying it. And so educating ourselves about that and the whole crypto wallet and the keys and custody versus self-custody and all of those things, are important for us to understand, because if our members are buying it and are interested in it, then it's probably something we should pay attention to. And again, this is where I go back to, it starts with cryptocurrency, but it doesn't end there. But I think that's where credit unions can kind of start to get engaged there, because it's something that their members are already doing. But yes, it can also be used as a payment mechanism. We're not quite there yet as an industry, but there's a lot of really big companies that are already looking into using that as a payment rail for the future.
Right. Okay. Well, and I believe the first step, I know for me, the first step is to just get a baseline understanding. Once we can kind of get a foundation and start with crypto and have that understanding of how it works and all the different pieces, then we can begin to implement a program at the credit union. And I know you've got a nonprofit called Block Advocates, as well as a consulting company. How does a credit union get started? Do you do educational classes for credit union employees or the boards? How would you go about that?
Absolutely. And Block Advocates is actually dedicated specifically to educating credit union employees, credit union executive teams, and credit union boards, as well as our regulators, about crypto in an agnostic way that doesn't push a particular product or a vendor, just education. And we have some really great industry people that are part of the Block Advocates board. We have members of Block Advocates. It is a nonprofit organization that you can join at very grassroots, kind of familiar to the credit union space. And we will provide education to whoever you would like us to talk to for free. That's what it's all about. And so I encourage you to go to blockadvocates.org. You can join as a member of Block Advocates, or you can reach out to us and we will have some very well-versed volunteers come out and provide some education to your credit union.
Absolutely. And I know, and guys, Becky does a great job. She spoke at our conference and kind of gave us the 101 class, which was really great. And I'll be sure at the podcast, I'll go ahead and send all the links and information so that you can get in touch with Becky and get more information about Block Advocates and all that kind of good stuff. So Becky, just to end us today, I always like to ask a personal question, just so that our listeners kind of get to know you in a different way. So no pressure, but the question is, when you were a little girl, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, I was very enamored with horses when I was a little girl. A lot of little girls are. And I wanted to be a veterinarian. So that was something. But again, I didn't want, because I was horse crazy, I didn't want to deal with dogs and cats. I wanted to be a vet for horses.
I love it. Well, instead of helping animals, you're helping people. So I kind of feel like maybe that's the same parallel there, just people helping people. That's great. Well, Becky, is there any last comments you have for our listeners before we leave today?
My only comment that I'll leave you with is try to keep an open mind about crypto. Try to not pay attention so much to what you hear in the media, and hopefully open your mind to the future of finance. Start small, start with education. That's what I'll leave you with today. Thank you, Jami.
Oh, thank you, Becky. And thank you again for being a part of the podcast and helping us out. We look forward to speaking with you again.
Me too.
Have a good day. Bye, Becky.
Bye.
A Huda Media Production.